from the Mac of All Trades studio in Fairport. And driven by Victor Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram, it's Billified, the Bill Moran Podcast.
Well, hello and welcome. I guess we're starting a few minutes late. I apologize. There was all kinds of chaos happening all at once here.
A lot of stuff going on.
Well, there's a lot of stuff going on. I guess we kind of start with what is actually coming out locally in the news, and I'll save the other stuff. I don't know what you did, but Kevin's not here tonight, and I think that's your fault. I'm pretty
Probably
sure.
is my fault. I know it's my fault.
You do?
Oh, yeah, I know it's my fault. I have evidence.
Oh, you have evidence?
But yeah, I don't want to read any more text on the air, though.
Come on. No, don't stop now. Don't stop now. There's a little drama there. But we'll start with the news stuff, and then we have Tyler Dunn coming on about his...
He's very excited to come on the show.
Okay. Well, I'm excited to actually...
This guy was at Colin Cowherd's show last Friday, Bill. This is a big deal. Okay.
Well, I don't want him to be disappointed.
I already set his expectations pretty low.
They're going to be stepping down. All right, so let me give you. So there was a young man who's been missing from RIT since November 20th. He told his friends that he was leaving and going somewhere. I'm just surmising this. I'm not reading anything, and but none of the news stations are really saying anything. So I have friends that do this for a living, and we also have somebody in the Monroe County Sheriff's Department who is part of this. So I now, just to give you a little background, this young man went missing. I believe he's from Michigan. He went east, but he told his people that he was meeting friends and traveled east. I don't know why that's indicative. His friends could have been east, but I guess not. So, but no one had seen him. No one had seen anything, heard anything from him. I remember just lightly paying attention to it because I thought, well, could this kid have, you assume when it's a missing person and it goes more than 48 hours that we're talking about a recovery mission and not a return. Recovery being that we find the body. This young man is safe and sound.
Oh, heavens.
Yeah. Well, great. But now his mom and dad came to RIT, had started, I think there were fundraisers to get search parties and bring family members, and she was in his dorm room, and I thought maybe it was somebody from the DNC. I don't want to misquote anything, but I thought they had interviewed her, and she was just there trying to figure out where did this guy go. Now, we're talking, there's a major holiday in between November 20th and December 14th.
Thanksgiving, right, Billy?
Yes. You know what I'm
Where
saying?
you're supposed to be grateful for everything you have.
And you're with your
family.
There you go. So I called our friend Berkeley Breen.
Oh, I love Berkeley.
And I hadn't talked to Berkeley in a while. Berkeley said, yeah, he goes, we're not hearing anything on this. He said, I believe that all the information is coming from a Facebook post his family put out there. He goes, and then we got a very brief statement from the Monroe County Sheriff's Office. So I immediately fire off a text to our friend, Deputy Hurley. And Deputy Hurley says to me, can we talk tomorrow? I go, yeah. I said, I'm going to certainly bring it up tonight, but sure. He goes, I just don't know what I can say tonight.
Okay.
All right?
Yeah.
So I don't know what happened. So Berkeley said, I'm going to send you screenshots when I land. So when you walked in, I was getting texts from Hurley and Berkeley. He goes, I'm going to send you the screenshot from the family Facebook page that they had put up there. And it was the Find Matthew Grant Facebook page. 21-year-old kid, I believe a wrestler at RIT.
Yeah. Somebody you don't screw with.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, he knows moves. He looks
They say the best UFC fighters are wrestlers.
Yeah.
Because they know once they get you to the ground, it's over.
Matthew Grant has been found safe and is reunited with his family. Praise be to God. Matthew's vehicle was found by an officer late last night. The officer called in the plate number and realized it belonged to a missing person and acted immediately. We are forever grateful. For the privacy of Matthew and his family, we ask that you refrain from flooding us with questions and speculation at this time. Well, how the fuck can you not?
Wait a second. Time out. I understand. You're just getting over what you thought could have been a tragedy.
Well,
it was a month of hell.
If I'm his mom and dad, I want to choke this kid and hug this kid at the same time.
Yeah.
I want to choke him and hug him at the same time. I'm not kidding, because the mom and dad thought this young man was dead. They had to have.
Everybody.
Yeah, they came here. But we're living in 2023. You can't fart without someone being able to go with an infrared camera and figure out that the gas actually didn't come from Dan. It came from Bill.
Jeff Bezos, he knows.
You know what I'm saying?
Elon knows.
All that stuff. So I don't know if they found hits on a credit card, if they found him go through a toll. Well, obviously his car was found. We're hearing that. I'll read on.
Yeah, because it's about time that technology was good for something besides pulling money out of our freaking pockets.
We are forever grateful for the privacy of Matthew and his family. We ask that you refrain from flooding us with questions and speculation at this time. We will not be responding.
You know what they should do? Take that Matthew page that found to a frequently asked questions about Matthew page and say, so what the F happened? Well,
that's pretty
much the only question you need answered, because I'd be livid if my resources were used to find this dude who decided, I just need some time away.
Well, who knows, right? So we also ask if you personally know and love Matthew and family, you do not flood their phones with messages. They feel your love. Oh,
that's nice.
We have turned the commenting feature back on this post. We believe that each of you deserve the world and wish there was some way we could express our gratitude to you all individually. In a time of crisis, the community and beyond stepped up and treated our family like it was their own. You wrapped your arms around us while we navigated uncharted territory, and you helped us bring him home. You spent your own valuable time, efforts, and energy helping us, and together we get to celebrate in this miracle. Thank you, thank you, thank you. God is good all the time.
Yeah, I just got a text too. It said he'll be signing autographs at the RIT in a conference center on the sides of milk containers where he was missing. So it's a collector's item. I'd be out of my mind with this dude right now. I wonder if he had a gambling problem and the mob was holding him or something like that. Because if he can't talk about it and they can't talk about it, it's a pretty big thing not to talk about.
Well, it's a big thing not to talk about because you're curious. I mean, it's almost like, Huck Finn and Tom Sawyer.
Yeah, walking in on their funeral.
You know what I mean?
Which, by the way, I've always wanted to do.
Yeah, okay.
Just to see who shows up.
An ass. Of course. Why are you? Never mind. To me, that's paranoia.
You're
paranoid. You are. You talk about your funeral a lot, who you want there, what you want them to say. There's too much time.
You know why I lie? Yeah, you're right. I have way too much time.
No. Too much. No. I don't think you have too much time. I think there's too much time. For me, maybe not you, but for me, it's too much time to spend thinking about my funeral. I'm hoping I'm still fucking old. Nobody shows up. Hey, did you hear the old guy? You know that guy we saw passed out outside on the bench outside Thirsty's?
He's still there.
The Monroe County Sheriff's Office is pleased to inform, this is from Brendan Hurley, the press release, to inform that Matthew Grant has been located, is safe, and is reunited with his family. Thank you to all of the deputies, investigators who work so tenaciously coordinating the multiple agencies, follow-up leads, using technology, and working with the family to locate Matthew. We appreciate our partnership with the media who helps spread awareness and our efforts to reunite him with his family. And that's all they're saying. Because they don't know anything, because the other people are going, we can't say anything, or we're not saying anything at this moment. Now, I got to think, at this point, you almost need to hire a PR firm. Just don't do the ones that those people who did that racist party hired, whoever they were.
I'd stay away from the KFC people.
All right, so I'm saying if Matthew shows up, you ever, like your mom, you gave me a heart attack practically.
You hug him, then you punch him, then you hug him, then you punch him.
That's what I'm saying. Like, you want to go crazy because you left your family, unless they knew, like he was having, maybe he went to her. But how is this possible that you had all these agencies and you were able to literally, it's the closest thing to a disappearing act I have seen in a long time. Is it not?
I hate saying this. I don't want to cast aspersions on this guy.
Just shut up and say it.
I think he's got mental health issues.
No, that could be. And that very well could be. It could be the stress of feeling like you need to perform and being a student athlete and all this stuff. Sure. Okay. All right. But to just disappear like that and not reach out to your family is concerning.
I just hate saying it because it seems to be like the catch-all for everything.
No, it's not. I understand what
you know what I'm saying?
I hear what you mean.
We always blame everything. Well, I got mental health issues. Well, so does half the NBA when they don't want to play. Okay, I mean, so it's
I have
just
mental health issues every day.
No, dude, that's how I live. So I need Jesus.
If I didn't have mental health issues, I'd have no
health
friends.
at all.
I'd have no friends. I am my own multiple personality friend. So I don't know. Like I'm thinking I'd be very upset if I'm his family, but I'm also I have this thing, and I think I've said it. I don't know if I said it when we were together on the radio, but I did say it after that for sure. I remember that this guy went down into the subway tunnels down in Rochester, the old subway tunnels, and he decided to take pictures, and so he went out. And part of the river there is pretty shallow. So he went out and he got on some rocks and he's taking pictures. And I don't know if the water picked up or he hopped one rock too far, but all of a sudden now...
You hit a drop off?
No, it just turned into I can't get back. So now he's calling 911 and they got to get the ropes team from the fire department out. And I go, if you are a fucking moron and you go where it says, do not go beyond this point. You're at Letchworth, you're anywhere, and you go, and I understand the temptation to go. I am that kind of guy. But if they got to come save your ass, you got to pay that bill.
Yeah, that's fair.
Doesn't it?
Yeah, we said that. We said that then. I remember that.
But if you break, if it's a sign that says don't go there, you broke the rule.
Yeah.
Hey.
You broke the law.
Kansas City had a beautiful play, but somebody broke a rule.
Broke the rule. Yeah.
They broke a rule, Daniel.
Guy was lined up in the defensive backfield.
They broke a rule. He was lined up as a linebacker for the fucking Bills. Yes. So with this kid, what are you doing? And now there was an awful lot of money. I'm sure drones went up looking for the guy. And
we're going to find out how much money this cost us.
How much money? I want to know the family, just the family. Was mom already in therapy trying to deal with the unexpected loss of a 21-year-old son?
Oh, gosh.
Don't you think it could possibly be?
Yeah.
Yeah. He's got to pay that bill. Hey, you know what I got you for Christmas? A bunch of bills.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I took out missing persons insurance. So it's like the Geico or the Affleck of going missing.
And again, for the family, I'm sure the big sign of relief. But I mean, even as the family, they got to go, what is going on?
So remember when Matthew Perry died? It was right around Halloween.
Yeah.
And so it usually takes 6 weeks to find out like the cause of death. Typically, we usually forget, and then all of a sudden, oh yeah, that's right. Remember he died?
Yeah.
I'll bet you we'll find out the cause of Matthew Perry's death before we find out the real reason this kid went missing.
Well, we're coming up on almost 6 weeks.
Right.
Matthew Perry.
Right. That's my point. We're not going to find out much. No one's going to say anything.
Well, the thing is this: on the other side, okay, as much as I'm saying it because I have a 21-year-old son, and I would just be. I can only imagine. I just know some of the players in my family. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Oh, I can see the musical now.
And I'm just going, I know how upset everyone would be. And I would want to like privately put my arm around him and then put him in a chokehold and then hug him and then choke him and hug him and choke him.
Oh, yeah.
And so I
like
can't
your father
imagine.
famously said, I don't know if I should shake your hand or kick your ass.
Yeah, he did say that. And all I did was graduate high school. I never disappeared. I was right there. So I don't know. And with Matthew, there could be a number of, you're right, things going on. I think here's what I was going to say. Truthfully, it's none of our business. It doesn't change my life any bit what happened to this young man. It's not.
It's not.
But I would say for
when you involve the public, it's now our business.
Okay, but I think
the taxpayers of New York,
the police,
you
got that.
All right. Deserve to know.
It's an argument I don't have one for because there's a piece of me that goes once I. Somewhat half jokingly rant and half serious and just say the stuff we just said on the podcast. I go, I don't care. As long as the kid's fine. What does it change my day? But you know what? It could have changed other things. You deployed resources to go find somebody who wasn't really missing, or maybe they were, but, as an adult, not responding and not somehow snuck away. Who knows what else we didn't have somebody available to go cover, right? Because of that.
Yeah.
That's all.
So now our resources had to go elsewhere, and now the Kia boys have gotten away with a few more cars.
All right, we shall take a moment, and when we come back, Tyler Dunn from Go Long. He's got a
Guy's a heck of a writer. He
He's a
wrote.
journalist.
He covered the Packers from the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel. He covered the Bills for the Buffalo News for a while. Then he went to Bleacher Report and was a featured writer. And then Bleacher Report like blew out a ton of people because they overextended themselves. So he's been writing. He's been writing independently for Go Long TD.
Go Long TD is his thing.
That's his site.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we will talk to him. He did the whole big long thing on McDermott.
20,000 words.
I've read it 1.5 times, or let's say 1 3/4 times. And some of it may be sensationalized. I don't know. I think it was overall when I read it, I had a different voice in my head this time. So we'll get to all that next, but first. I believe this stayed on the charts for 12 months. Buffalo's own Goo Goo Dolls.
The song.
Yeah. The Buffalo Bills haven't even won 12 games this year. They could. They could, Danny. They could have. Right? That's the thing.
Rob Lucas was a longtime morning show host in Buffalo.
Yeah.
And our old company, Odyssey, sold his station, just his station, Star 102.5, to a Christian group to flip it to a Christian outlet. So when he did his last show, this was the last song he played.
I really love this song.
It's a great song. I think it's
song.
from the City of Angels soundtrack.
It is from the City of Angels soundtrack.
Nicholas Cage, which, by the way, that movie that ends in such a bummer.
Yeah, I don't remember. Let me, I'm going to call.
He's an angel. He comes down to Earth. He falls in love with Meg Ryan. Who wouldn't, right? And she's so in love that she's just in La La Land on her bicycle. She gets hit by a car and dies. And now he became human for her. And now he's got to figure out the world by himself. Yeah.
Wow, what an interesting concept.
I know.
What an interesting
Can you
premise.
believe that?
No, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
All right, I'm calling Tyler Dunn. Let's see what we...
Then he gets. Then he leaves Las Vegas. Well, that's a different movie.
Hello.
Tyler, I want to apologize for being 10 minutes late.
Oh, my gosh. Don't worry about it.
Well,
how you doing?
I'm doing well, and I appreciate you taking some time to talk to us. I'm sure you've been a very busy guy after the release of that article last week.
No problem. Yeah, it's been nuts.
I would think it has been because, look, you were getting attention from every corner of the planet, and I said the only way that article doesn't become even more impactful is if they win, and they didn't. They lucked out. They lucked out. They didn't. They lucked out.
They got bailed out.
I know.
They lucked out. In the end, and I think in the article, you talk about that edge, and it was so apparent to me because I've read the article, as I was saying just before we called you, at like 1 3/4 times. I didn't get all the way through the second time, but the point is there's a point in the article, and it might be the third part, where you talk about Sean McDermott kind of clenching up in the big moments and how that I'm going to call it energy because it's weird, but I'm a big energy guy, and I believe that we pick up on other people's energy, and it sounds like he clenches up, and then everybody else does as well. And in those big moments, you were talking about the teams that are more relaxed, the coaches that are a little looser, the Philly special, the this, that. We just saw it happen with a loose team at the end of a big game, and they won, except they broke a rule.
I could not agree more. It's so true.
Yeah.
That's what makes football great, right? It's one on the fringes. It's one by the inches, and a call here, a call there. The football shaped with the 2 points in a funny way for a reason. But I think you got to give the Bills and Sean McDermott their credit. I mean, they did stop Kansas City 3 times in a row after that play.
Yes, they did. You are 100% right. And as the words,
a correlation there. I agree.
I felt as I was reading it, I go, God, and I had read it before the game, and now I'm reading it again after the game, and I go, that moment is what jumped off the page, so to speak, to me when I thought of that, and I thought, wow. But as you read the article, and I don't know if you're willing to kind of share this, it is an article that is insightful. You talk to a lot of guys. Some people remain anonymous. Some people get upset when some people won't put their name to certain things. I mean, we all understand why.
Yeah,
people won't.
It's the NFL, man.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying it, but I'm just wondering, have you received, I guess, percentage-wise, positive versus negative response to this article?
Definitely a blend,
okay.
Right? It's gonna the folks that are upset with it are going to be very, very loud, and they're fans. I mean, it's short for fanatic. I get it. I mean, the Bills are a religion here in Western New York, and so when this comes out, I think that it kind of followed a similar trajectory, if you will, to the Packers story I did at Bleacher Report. When was that? 2019. So Mike McCarthy's fired. Aaron Rodgers is off one of his worst seasons. Everybody's wondering what the hell happened here.
Yeah.
And initially, so I did a lot of reporting on that as well. Probably about 5-6 months of talking to as many players, as many coaches, scouts as I could. Same deal. some on the record, some anonymously. And, we could talk about anonymous sourcing for hours. I see the value in it, and I think a lot of people see the value in it.
Well, you feel like you can really say something that's insightful, and I always believe in looking for patterns in life, Tyler. Like, I look for patterns, like with my kids. Am I seeing a pattern of something that's adding up to a problem here? And it seemed like that article was showing a pattern of behavior from McDermott that really could it be preventing the team from getting over the hump, the proverbial hump? And people saying that anonymously, I'm sorry to interrupt, is only one. Sure, it can be frustrating because we want to, well, who the fuck's saying this? But at the same time, I get why you wouldn't, and it does paint the picture. Hey, this guy is putting his name to it. He said it, and here's two anonymous sources saying the same thing.
To get the truth, to really lift up the curtain and see how this league works, in a lot of cases, takes that. And so there's an element of trust, right? It's up to the reader to decide. I'll stand by my record. I'll stand by my reputation. The stories I've done in the past, always, covered the NFL full time since 2011, and you build up a lot of relationships over the 13 years. So I think that if you really want to understand how somebody coaches behind the scenes, look, a lot of these assistants that have left, and remember, they weren't necessarily always fired. A lot of them left by decision for lateral moves. So that tells you something there. It's not like they're bitter that they were canned and they lost their livelihood in every situation.
Mm-hmm.
The same deal with some players. So I think that there's kind of two NFLs, and there's the version that we see at a press conference at a podium, and it can be good. Don't get me wrong. I've heard stories off those kind of settings, and I've talked to players in the locker room and built those kind of relationships. But there's a whole other world beneath the surface, and to bring that world to the fans, to the readers who are, by the way, making this a multi-billion-dollar industry, I think you've got to reveal the good, the bad, and the ugly. And in this case, there was quite a bit of bad, and we all know what the ugly was.
So what do you say to the people that say you've been denied press credentials by the Bills? I believe they're the only team in the NFL that did not grant them to you. And you've had, I think, is that because of a past incident with McDermott? Potentially, could that be the case? That's been rumored to me, but I don't know if that's the case. I'm asking.
No, I've never really had an interaction with Sean McDermott in my life.
Okay. I didn't know if there was some kind of article or something happened at a press conference.
I could connect some dots, right? It wouldn't take a rocket scientist to, see that I wrote a story breaking down 13 seconds. The bad situation was the headline a couple years ago. And it was after that into the next season that I was told, I wouldn't be credentialed, not that I was before with Go Along. And if I wanted quotes to get them off the website, and that was that. And they said they just weren't credentialing new media. But, I don't want to read into their decision or anything.
All right. I was sort of reading into it, and I went just to try to go from both sides. Is this like Tyler having a problem and making McDermott look bad, or telling that 9/11 story, which it's kind of cool that Saturday Night Live picked up on your article, didn't it?
Right.
I mean, in a way, Tyler.
Congratulations.
It's a little bit of a bragging point, I think. But, I mean, even that was more the sensational stuff. And what bothered me, I think, more than anything, was that the other media that picked up on your piece would highlight those. But when you read the whole article, which as an individual, independent myself, pay this guy to read his stuff, please. Because, yes. But please don't just let somebody take an excerpt out, because in the big picture, because that sounds like sensational, and the story wasn't that big a deal. I think everybody in Buffalo who covered the Bills knew about that speech and knew he had apologized. But in this article, it just kind of shows you the awkwardness of McDermott and his awkward way of relating to players, and sometimes finding the way to connect to guys. And I even think in there you say, no, he's not supporting him. He's not that guy. But some people pulled it out, and I know, like, individual people on social media were writing about it, and I think that sometimes people thought there was a little bit of an axe to grind, but I don't think that's the case after reading it twice.
Yeah, I think if people read the series in its totality, I get it. It's editorialized. Like, I'm saying he's the problem, and that's the result of talking to all of these people. It is, I guess it's kind of a blend of, he is central to this team falling short year after year, and everything that you see on the TV, like, there's a reason for it. There's a reason late in games that they're taking a knee with 20 seconds against Philly. They fall apart at Arrowhead in 13 seconds, all that. So I just wanted to bring that to life and follow the reporting of what everybody was telling me. I was reaching out to them. As far as the axe to grind, look, I don't care if they credential me or not. I just want to be transparent with everybody and say, look, there's a reason that you're not going to see direct quotes from a ton of current players in this series, because I'm not in the building. And there isn't Sean's voice because they closed the door. The drawbridge had been closed a while back, so that just isn't going to stop me from doing a job. And I told the Bills this a year ago when we were denied, at some point, I can't remember, that even though they weren't going to go along a credential, that's fine. That's their prerogative. They're a business. They can do whatever the hell they want to do. I live here. A lot of my subscribers, when I launched Go Long, they're Bills fans. So I'm not going to ignore the Bills just because they want me to ignore the Bills. So that's why I did a show with Isaiah McKenzie for 2 years. Mm-hmm. That's why I've done a ton of player profiles. So everything that everybody's seen, that wasn't no help from the Bills. I just got those guys on my own. Deion Dawkins, Damar Hamlin, Tywan Jones, Naeem Hines. There's been a whole bunch that I've kind of gotten together with. Quentin Morris, grabbing wings at Barville, Elmo's, whatever, and just kind of learn about their lives. So I think that, there's access journalism, and there's a lot of folks that maybe just kind of want to be a part of that and follow the mob and the amoeba in the locker room. And, this is the talking point at a podium, just eat it up like slop. But I feel like, we owe it to the readers to find some original stories. And clearly this season, the number one story is Sean McDermott the man to lead this team when you have Josh Allen, when you've fallen short year to year to year, when you're 6-6, and that Philly game just encapsulated the entire era. That's why I dropped the story after that game. And I've heard that quite a bit too. The timing, how could you do it now? Well, I don't work for the Bills. I don't put stories out so everybody feels warm and fuzzy inside. Hell, I got a lot of criticism with the Packers story.
Oh, I remember.
For dropping it in the off season because Mike McCarthy didn't have a job yet. If we're all just going to take different feelings into account, I'll take the readers' feelings into account first. How about that? Right now, I felt like the readers, the fans, want to know more about Sean McDermott and what the problems may be internally. So that's the compass I'll follow, and that's what I try to follow throughout the reporting of this story that began, honestly, back in the spring is when I probably started talking to people.
Talk to me about being independent, because you get to do that because you're independent. Sometimes you could get pressure from an editor if you're somewhere else saying, hey, listen, we want to have access. We want to keep access. Hold off on this, or, hey, let's change this, or leave that out, or you understand? And I'm not – it almost sounds like there's no such thing as freedom of speech or freedom of the press. But there is the human element of things, right? There's a give-take in life. So you want to do that. But the cool thing about being independent is you're beholden to no one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's a blessing and a curse. Maybe not the right cliche, but it
is the right cliche.
I love it. And a privilege, whatever it is. Right? Yeah. I've got the freedom to do whatever I want, whenever I want to do it. Yet I'm going to lean into the personal discipline and lessons that I've learned over the years. I've been so lucky to have just so many amazing mentors, back to, Chuck Pollock at the Olean Times-Herald. I grew up in Western New York working for him. To today, when I got to the NFL, Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel, working with Bob McGinn, Tom Silverstein, Lori Nickel. I've been around a lot of old school reporters that did the job a certain way. So, leaning into that and kind of, I think that's important because you can't just shoot from the hip. I think everything's got to be rooted in and steeped in reporting. And that's why I talked to 25 people to try to learn as much as I possibly could. Honestly, I wanted to just keep going and keep reporting and just see what other rabbit holes I could fall into. But it felt like, okay, let's put it out now. To me, fellas, you know what I mean? Like, these palace intrigue kind of features, they're typically dropped when the coach is fired.
Yeah.
So the coach is fired, and then the beat writers or whoever knows that team or that coach best pull out the notebook, dust it off, and share all the terrible stories with the world because there's no repercussions, right? It's all right now, but here it is. I think that there's a value to doing it in real time, and you're going to get backlash. You know, I may not be credentialed by the Bills, but hell, I live here. I was just at Target today at Orchard Park wearing my Go Long sweatshirt. I'm like, oh, they're looking at me a funny way here. You know, so there's that, but I feel like it's better for the reader if you do it now, because that's when interest is highest. That's when they can start making judgments for themselves. I'd encourage everybody, just read it in its totality and decide for yourself what you think, instead of just seeing a 9/11 headline and put it in your head.
Go ahead.
Well, I wanted to ask you about that, because to me, like Tyler, like if anybody read the article drops on Thursday. By Thursday afternoon, the Bills are holding a press conference, and then everybody's commenting about the 9/11 stuff. Now, were you surprised that it was of all the stuff that I took from that article, the 9/11 stuff kind of ranked maybe like 8th or 9th? That was just like more evidence that he's kind of like a Michael Scott type. Okay. Like that's how I take Sean McDermott. I've taken that since the season opener of 2021. I'm like, how'd you lose to the Steelers? How'd you lose 7 games that year? Like they've had more inexplicable losses to lesser teams and lesser quarterbacks, some of whom are no longer in the NFL, that we make fun of, or are like taking position coach jobs because they can't coach anymore. Nobody respects them. And yet this guy lost all these games. The 13 seconds game, you could lay at his feet, and yet everybody just draws to the 9/11 stuff. Were you surprised that, like, they clearly didn't read the entire article when they jumped to that? I know the Bills did a press conference about it, but did that take you aback at all, that was what they gleaned from it?
Isn't that amazing? I mean, it's so refreshing to hear you say that, because as I'm working on this, I was probably right there with you. Like, it's, you know, and the way I viewed the speech, it probably was like 7th or 8th on the most damning details gleaned from these players and coaches and everybody who's been around them, because I really tried to make it clear writing like this. Obviously, he isn't pro-terrorism.
Right.
That is ridiculous.
He's not an Al-Qaeda.
But it does shine a damning spotlight on a lot of his worst tendencies, overthinking something to the point of including that analogy, or that model, I should say, into a training camp speech. Like that is overthinking to the extreme, to the cluelessness of not realizing this is like saying that Hitler's a good leader. Well, I mean, and then it really needs to connect, right? That's the other one. It's not connecting.
Henry Ford liked him.
It's an interesting thing, because we have a very close friend who is a big sponsor of the Buffalo Bills, sponsors training camp and everything in town. And we talked about this article with him on the podcast, and he was saying that piece he wished was left out. It seems sensationalized and all that. And it was more on the second read for me where I went, no, it's not. It's painting the whole picture. It's just telling you a story. It wasn't done to sensationalize. It was done to go, and here's just one more example of the awkwardness and the uncomfortableness. And even some of the players go, we get what he was trying to do, but it didn't. It missed the mark. He apologized, you know, but that's the thing that becomes highlighted. So for you as an independent journalist, how do other journalists react to you? Do they, I mean, now that's out, like, I don't even know if some of them went beyond the paywall, but I know they certainly took that story. I saw that story in several places.
Yeah. That bothered me, Tyler. It really did, because there were a few, like, I'm not going to name any names, local prominent journalists with years of experience on television who all of a sudden just jumped on the 9/11 stuff. And it was like, come on, really? Yeah. Did you read the damn thing?
But do they kind of give you the side eye or treat you as though you're less than? Because of that, you think? I don't know. I'm asking. I don't know.
Yeah, you know, I think that's a really good point. and I tried to give it like 24 hours or so after the game to write a column, kind of reflecting back on the madness and really how this kind of crystallized the whole mission of what I'm trying to do with Go Long and who I'm really writing for. So you're not writing for the people who are never going to subscribe and never going to read and are only concerned with that headline. And I cannot tell you, I do not want to make myself an empathetic figure at all. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that, to your point on people not even reading it, I mean, the nasty crap that you get from folks, clearly they didn't read it. Clearly they just saw 9/11 headline, 9/11 story.
Right.
I'm the author. You're trying to nuke this team, nuke this season. Like, that's awful. But no, I think everybody who read it, yeah, if you've got disagreements, like let's chat about it. That's why I had a happy hour at my site Thursday night, and that's why I have another one this Friday night. Like, let's talk about it, because those who read it, like, we can have an intelligent conversation about maybe problems you had, and I can take you through the thought process of everything. But yeah, in terms of the local media, that was a surprise. I wasn't necessarily surprised that the Bills had such a PR campaign on Friday. I mean, Steve Tasker is saying that this was written for profit, which
yes,
I guess that means that Steve has donated his salary to charity. So congrats to Steve for doing that. So that's not a surprise. But I was a little surprised, given the volume of news in this series that hasn't really been reported or talked about or anything yet.
Yes.
That locally, people cover the team day to day, didn't pick any of it up.
Well,
didn't find that worth a blog post. That definitely surprised me. So that kind of allows the 9/11 thing to dominate locally, nationally. It probably would have anyways. I'm not a dummy. I mean, that's awful. Right? You just don't do that as a leader of any organization. But that locally, to see that reaction was a bit of a surprise.
Well, see, that to me is a bigger commentary on journalism today. I have been like pre-taping some stuff for the holidays, and I had a journalist in here, and he had told me he was doing a story on women prisoners in Albion. Just as an aside, to just give you an example as to why your 9/11 thing pops out. And at the time, Amy Fisher was who was the Long Island Lolita. She had shot Mary Jo Buttafuoco in the face. It was I'm from downstate. It was a big story in the late 80s, early 90s. And she winds up in prison up here. Well, he's doing a story on a prison guard raping a couple of the women. And her mother finds out and contacts him, and he didn't want to include Amy Fisher because he didn't want the story to become sensationalized, and anything anybody's going to focus on is Amy Fisher. And he goes, my purpose was to really help women in prison who are being raped, and I know you're in prison, but you don't deserve this kind of shit. So he said eventually it did come out, and that her mother says to him, we snuck panties out of prison that have semen on them, and where I'm having them analyzed. She calls back. It turns out to be this one guard, and he did wind up going to prison himself for raping several women, including Amy Fisher, except the New York Post found out that she had been writing love letters to him. So that sort of overshadows. And my point for you is that, like, the 9/11 thing to me was, in the article, it's an example of McDermott awkwardness, not a great leader, might be a great coordinator, but not a great leader of men, seems to have this rigidness about him, tightens up at the wrong time, even says the wrong thing, even though he's trying not to. Here's an example of that. But yet everybody ran with the 9/11, and I think that becomes a bigger thing in today's journalism to try to get hits. Like, hey, now I'm going to click on whatever TV station or website or newspaper that's got an excerpt of Tyler's article because I can look at it for free, or I don't even know maybe who Tyler is or what he does. And that to me is shitty.
Yeah.
To put it in a base way, it's shitty because it took me a second read really to go, that's not the focus here. And yet it was, and it shouldn't have been. Yeah. And that's the Twitter world. I blame X.
Oh yeah. It's the counter culture. I call them the cancel culture vultures. That's what they circle.
It's hard to argue with any of that. I mean, I see it, that's kind of how today's media works.
Yeah.
And it's sad, but I see it all the time. I mean, basically every long form story I do, if there's something in there that's salacious, maybe a little strong in this case. It's not. That's what's going to get picked up. That's what's going to get aggregated. That's what's going to get shared. You do a 4, 5, 6, 7, in this case, 21,000 word story on somebody, and it will be whittled down to one anecdote shared everywhere. So I guess I'm just kind of used to that. And I just kind of, I wasn't going to fight it. Even early on at the Journal-Sentinel covering the Packers, that happened all the time. It'd piss off players, because they'd see what was aggregated. And as the journalist, you're like, man, that wasn't my intent. I've got this long story.
Right.
And people who read it in full are going to understand it. So I really just try to stay steadfast in writing for my audience. In this case, it's people who subscribe to go long for the long form. And I've been blown away by the emails, the comments. Everybody who's read it just gets it within the community I've been building here. So I'm at peace with it. Now, it's frustrating. Don't get me wrong, but what are you going to do, right, when you've got so many people who didn't read losing their minds? I don't think it should stop me. In the reporting process, I didn't think, oh, you know what? This anecdote's going to get picked up for this reason because nobody's going to actually read, so I'm not going to use it. I think that's a disservice to the audience that I have and the community I've been building here. I'm going to articulate it exactly as it was explained to me by these players, and how it does point out his flaws for X, Y, and Z, and it does connect. It's not just this crazy one-off thing that he apologized for an hour later that she's forgotten. It is bizarre. It is noteworthy, newsworthy, and it does explain a lot about the coach and his inability to connect with the players. Well, so
you had a story in there about the old lady that got confused and drove in. I remember the story. It was like a year ago.
Right?
She drove into the Niagara River, and the car got stuck on rocks right before it went over the falls. He used that as an analogy, but it didn't go anywhere.
For teamwork. What happened?
I believe that story's before the 9/11 story in your article.
Yes.
Yeah. There were some other speeches told. I mean, a lot of them are just clunky and awkward, and they don't really make sense or have a point. And it's, I think he has gotten a little better over time, but he struggles to communicate. But worse than that, I think it was the cluelessness. There's an assistant coach who said that even after this speech, that Sean couldn't really understand why players were pissed.
Yeah.
It didn't register in his mind. And it did take, Sean's not going to say this at the press conference. We wrote it. It did take Kyle Williams kind of being there and saying, hey, this, you've got to talk to the team. And he did, to his credit, on the field an hour later. But that just goes to show that robotic nature that Sean McDermott has. He's robot's the word you hear a lot. It's a strong word, but you hear fraud quite a bit. There's a lot of good there, and we didn't even talk about it here, but there is a lot of good. He pulled him out of the gutter because he is so disciplined. They needed that order. It was such a mess under Rex. It was even worse than I thought. So they needed Sean McDermott, but I think that his flaws, they have held him back, and they'll continue to hold him back. Number one flaw being that inability to really connect with the most important player on the team, that being Josh Allen.
Tyler, that's why I'm glad you wrote this, because as a diehard Bills fan, I haven't missed a Bills game since I was 7. I'm 43 years old now. I lived through the Super Bowls, right? And, they produced the 4 Falls of Buffalo, and it's really a puff piece. We still have not gotten to the answer of why they lost those 4 Super Bowls. We haven't gotten to the truth of the 17-year drought, and yet you just gave us the truth about why this team with Josh Allen can't win. It's the head coach, right? And everybody's pissed off that they have the answer. They don't like the truth. And it bothers me because, if you remember, the 85 Bears 30 for 30, they all crapped on Ditka, and they won. But you got answers as to why that team couldn't go any further. And yet, you gave us the answers on why this team isn't doing anything, and people are ticked off. Too freaking bad. I want the truth now. I don't want Chris Brown from the Buffalo Bills, mouthpiece to tell me 5 years later that Jerry Gray had quit 7 different times in his final year with the Buffalo Bills. Well, that was information I could have used then when I'm buying tickets for this team. I want to know this stuff now because people are investing their money now, and I'm glad you brought that to light. That's all I'm saying. I'm sorry.
I love it. No, it's trust me, it's good to hear because that was the intent, right? It's for the people. It's for everybody. just wondering what the hell's going on with this team, with this coach, with this quarterback. And you can feel the frustration through these losses. When you lose to Denver the way you lost.
Oh God, we were there.
We were there together.
Yeah.
I believe that there was a starvation for information. What is going on here?
Yeah.
And because you deserve it. The fans deserve it. The Bills don't exist without people filling that stadium. So,
well, it's like when they had all that.
That's why we do it in real time.
Well, it's like when they had all that information on Whitey Bulger and they could never make a case against him. And you found, he's an FBI informant. Oh, well, that makes sense. But nobody could figure that out. Nobody knew. Now we know why this team can't freaking win.
What I kind of like, Tyler, and I wonder if this will happen. You seem to be a guy who's fairly open-minded. You're having the happy hour where people can come in and I assume have dialogue with you and you'll answer questions and maybe there'll be disagreements, but a dialogue. That's somebody who's open to criticism and changing. Is there a chance that this article, which I believe may have led to the dismissal had they lost against Kansas City? I really do. I think your article would have gotten even more attention, right? But could this maybe potentially change McDermott? Is there a chance in your mind that he reads this or someone gets to him and goes, hey, everything about you here is kind of true, man, and we never see ourselves as we are. You know what I mean? We have a perception of what we do and what we think we are, but it's how other people are perceiving us, and a lot of times there's some truth to it. It's just hard to hear.
I've really enjoyed this conversation. I mean, that's such a great question. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, 1 week in, there seemed to be an overcorrection, right? Late in that game, he's throwing where he would run before.
Yeah.
As an aside, this wasn't in the story. One player told me that this is a player, he played for the Bills, well-known guy. Obviously can't say his name here. That he was watching a playoff game when the Bills played Miami. And I can't remember the exact sequence. It was after a big turnover. Maybe it was the Zach Sealer touchdown, something like that. And he told people around him, like, all right, watch this. They're going to run. Here comes the run. Sean's going to do it. And that's exactly what he did. And everybody who's watched this team has really gotten to know those tendencies. And those tendencies weren't there against Kansas City. No. Right to the end when he's blitzing and pressuring. And, again, if Kadarius Toney isn't offside,
yes,
it's another disaster with another nickname. And you're right, the pressure ramps up.
Yep.
But they won, and he was aggressive. He was different. I would hope for the Bills' sake he changes. I don't know. I really don't know. I mean, it's the variance is unbelievable. They could miss the playoffs entirely. They could get to the Super Bowl. This AFC is wide open.
It is, and it would be very interesting to me it is very interesting to see what happens the rest of the way and what impact this article has, because I think it has an impact either direction here. Lose, I think it starts to show what's really happening.
Right.
Win, maybe it was the catalyst to make some changes that were needed. I don't know. It's just a thought, and I think it's kind of cool that you're the guy maybe behind that.
Well, man, I'm not going to take myself too seriously.
No,
I'll send you a ring. I'll buy you a ring if they win a Super Bowl because of this, Tyler. I may have to take out a mortgage to buy it, but I'll do it.
That's interesting. Hey, how do people sign up? Like if they want to join.
GoLongTV.com. Absolutely. And this has been great. Thanks so much, guys.
Yeah.
It's part of Substack. So Substack's our platform. But if you just go right to GoLongTV, just like my initials or touchdown.com, you can sign up for $8 a month, $50 a year to get everything. There is a free list, some stuff I'll put out there for free to give people a taste. But to get everything, including this series, for the paid subscribers, and definitely have been blown away by people's curiosity. It's been warming the heart that people still are willing to drop everything they're doing to read. And that was the big gamble. Like when I launched this thing in November 2020, and the big story that I kind of started with was all about Josh Allen and the Bills owner Terry Pagula loving Patrick Mahomes, right? Before anybody even knew he'd be any good.
That's right.
And that was pretty wild learning that all. But anyways, so it's there's definitely been a desire to learn, to read, And that's what I didn't even know if it existed, really, because you gotta pull out the credit card, put the information in, subscribe.
Oh, it's so hard. We do it all the time on Amazon.
Well, I found out my subscription lapsed because I had to switch credit cards because I had to. So I'm like, oh my gosh! I'm like, clicking, I'm a member, and then I go back and sign up.
What else are they getting, Tyler? Because I don't have a paywall with our stuff, but people have talked to me about probably putting some content behind a paywall. But what else are you giving them? It sounds like the happy hours, and like, what is that?
So we've definitely the bedrock of everything. It's the long form and the stories that take days, weeks, in this case months to kind of develop. But I want to keep a regular cadence too. So I'll usually have a column on Monday, with a main point off of one of the games, and then kind of rip around the league. Bob McGinn, like I mentioned him earlier, he's in the Hall of Fame. Unbelievable person, unbelievable reporter. Has covered the NFL and the Packers since 1979. So we're kind of reunited. We do a podcast each week. That's for the subscribers as well. And he writes columns from time to time. And he's got his draft series. This coming spring is the 40th annual Bob McGinn draft series, where he's talking to scouts and coaches all around the NFL. So you'll get that. Jim Monis. So I talked to him for that first story I mentioned. And then we kind of, as we're talking about it and getting to know each other, like, man, why don't we just do a podcast? And so that kind of evolved into more of a friendship, of being completely honest, of doing a podcast. So we do a show as well, including one this week where he had a lot of great things to say about Sean McDermott, that interview process. It was fascinating.
Yeah, he was in on it. He's a personnel guy.
Exactly. He was a scout for the Philadelphia Eagles, New Orleans Saints, and then the director of personnel for the Bills from 13 to 17. And then, Q&As, columns, whatever comes to mind, and Brett Favre. We've got a podcast as well. That's not every week, but we've done, 6 or 7 shows. We'll do a couple more too.
Wow, that's great. Well, very interesting. I would say go find out more, and please, with everything that we're seeing online, try to find the whole article and not the excerpt, because sometimes it's taken out of context and people run.
I appreciate that. You know what? And hey, if you can't hold people's eyelids open and force them to read.
Right.
It's gotta happen organically. But I do believe if people are listening and they've just seen the headline and they think that they know what this is about, I really don't think they do. I think read it in its entirety, draw your own conclusions. If you're still pissed off and you want to talk, come on to the happy hour. Let me know. We'll hash it out.
Yeah, I like that. Tyler, it's been a pleasure. Thank you,
Tyler. Appreciate it.
Hey, thank you guys. Thanks for putting up with my kids too. I've been kind of doing a little 1-on-2 zone defense. Sonny here has got a little present for him in his diaper, so I do a little multitasking.
All right. Well, I appreciate you giving us the time. Thanks, man.
Thanks, Tyler.
Thanks, guys.
See you. There he goes, Tyler Dunn. I'm running low on disk space, I'm being told, in my computer. My battery's going to die on the camera thing. I'm all wigging out over here.
That was a great set.
Yeah. It was a great conversation.
It's like we're in an era now where we're starving for real journalism, and that's not at the fault of the people who are doing their jobs. They're doing their jobs the best they can. They're spread pretty thin.
Spread thin? I worked in corporate radio. You did too.
Yeah.
My last job, dude, I literally would get up at 3, 4 in the morning and be working nonstop till 11 o'clock at night.
You got to allow the press who's willing to do this to do their job.
And that's what the press is doing too. So
yeah, he gave you the answers.
This is, I am telling you, when I have said you're going to see things go back to smaller because it's better, it's going to happen. It will.
Yes.
And these independent guys are proving that that's where the real value of things are, because they're beholden to no one. You don't get that story. And it's not just the 9/11 thing. The 9/11 thing is you got to read it in the context. I urge people to do that. But I urge you, with everything you look at, when you see something in the New York Post picks up just a piece, or you see something on X, or you see it on Facebook, try to find the original thing and make sure, if you have time, we don't, most people, or at least in your mind go, I'm not so sure about just this. I'm hoping there's more to it. Maybe not, but believe me, there usually is. There usually is.
Absolutely.
All right, we will take a moment, and when we come back, should we get into why Kevin may not be here? Would you like to do that?
Sure, we could do that.
Would you like to do that? Or
Yeah, let's
I've
do
got
that.
other things.
Let's do that.
I've got other things.
We could do that. And other things.
You know
too.
what? I'll do my little piece with Charlie. This could piss off a lot of people. We'll get to that next. But first.